Hello! So today I'm going to talk about the multi-solver and how that can help you in your workflow. So I have this scene with this object. I have this little cube here, I have this sphere here, and this curve here. And my goal is to emit from this sphere, and all my particles would have this little cube instanced on them, and then they're going to follow this curve. And they will also self-collide. So let's see how we can do that. First of all, I'm going to drop down a scatter, and I'm going to place that after my emitter. I want to have one particle per frame. So I have put one here, and on the global seed, I'm going to do $F, which means that this value is changing for every frame. So if we look at the result, we can see what we have a point that is shifting around on every frame. If I drop down a copy, 2 points, and I take my little cube here and connect that to this, now you can see that we have a cube that is appearing on a new position on every frame. One last thing I want to do before I move on is to check this pack and instance. This means that on every frame I have a packed primitive. And so if you look at the spreadsheet now, you can see I just have 1 point that is changing position. If I wouldn't do that, and if I uncheck that, I would have the full geometry. So here is like all the vertices on the cube. Gotta close this down, and I'm gonna drop down a DOP network. I gotta connect this into the first port here, and let's see. First of all, I want to have a pop solver. I'm gonna connect that in here. Because I already know that I want self collisions, I'm gonna use an RBD packed object, and I'm gonna connect that into the first port. And we need a pop source, and I'm gonna connect that to the last port here. And in my pop source, I want to have all geometry because I want to have the pack primitive on every frame. As geometry source, I can use first context geometry, which is this first port here. So if we look what this gives us, as you can see, it's adding a pack primitive on every frame, but they are not moving because I haven't added any forces yet. So let's do that. I want it to follow the curve, so I'm gonna use a pop curve force. Here's my pop curve force, and I'm gonna use the curve here, so accept. And I find this guide here a bit distracting, so I'm gonna go to guides and turn that off. So let's see what we get from this. You can see we have these very slow moving cubes. So let's add a little bit to that force. So the follow scale, I'm gonna set that to 5 as a suction scale that makes sure that they stay close to the curve. I'm gonna put that to 5 too. So now we can see that it's following the curve, but the problem is, as you can see, that they are intersecting. So you get this very thin line of cubes. So let's do something about that. So how can we fix this? We can fix this by using a multi-solver. So I'm going to drop down this multi-solver. So I'm going to connect this to the last section here, and I'm going to connect these together, and then I'm going to disconnect this RBD packed object and put that into the multi-solver instead. So if we just run this, nothing really happens. It's the same thing. We have all these intersections. But what you can do with this multi-solver is to stack other solvers. So we need a solver that can take care of self-collisions. And one solver that can do that is the bullet solver. So let's drop down a bullet solver. If this was a pop object, this wouldn't work. But because it's an RBD packed object here, we already have bullet data on it. So if we look at this show guide geometry and turn this display geometry off, we can see we already have collision geometry for these cubes. Turn this back on and just connect this to the end. The order here is important. So now it's going to go for the pop solver first, which is following the curve, and when it's done with that, it's going to go to the bullet solver that will look at the intersection and push it apart. So if we look at this now, we can see that the different cubes are colliding but still following the curve. And you can of course connect even more solvers if you want to, and write your own sub-solvers and whatnot. So I hope that you found this useful, and see you next time.